Welcome back to Old Times Talk. I'm your host, Landon. The year is 1947. Most homes don't even own a television yet, but most everyone does have a radio, and it's usually on. Milk bottles sit on doorsteps in the morning. Letters are traveling farther than a voice ever could. And long-distance phone calls were just something you didn't plan for, and if you ever got one, you ended up paying a pretty big price for it. This is also the year that Jackie Robinson walked onto a Major League Baseball field for the first time. The Marshall Plan begins rebuilding a broken Europe, and families are moving into new neighborhoods, raising children in a world that's trying to feel steady once again. This is the world that our guest was born into, and we're happy to welcome Connie Jensen to Old Times Talk. Awesome. So thank you, Connie, for being on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
So like I told Clyde, this is really just ask some questions and you can answer. You don't have to answer. It's totally fine.
Okay.
But to start off, just introduce yourself, who you are, where you grew up.
I'm Connie Mae Mitchell Jensen, and I was born May 6, 1947. And I have two brothers and one sister. And then at the age of 14, I went to work for the Iceberg in Draper. And then Clyde and I was married at 16. And Clyde and I kind of run the Iceberg when they'd go on vacation. We'd stay in the house in the back. And trying to think what else. Then when Brad was going on his mission, I have 4 children. 3 boys and 1 daughter, and same as Clyde. The oldest one's Clint, then Teresa, and then Brad, and then Brian. And after we had Clint, Clyde even kind of worked at the Iceberg also, but I worked there for probably till I was in my 20s. And then I had more kids by then, so I quit working. And I made 35 cents an hour when I started to work there. I made a dime more than what I made baby tending, because I used to do a lot of baby tending, and I made 25 cents at babysitting, 35 cents at the Iceberg. And then I got so I could even take care of the Iceberg when they would go on vacations with Clyde and I. And then after that, after we were married and had the 4 children, and then when Brad went on his mission, that's when I went to work for Highland Credit Union. My sister-in-law Janice was the manager, and she asked if I would come and work. And I says, yeah, that money would help for the mission. So that's the only time I really went to work. I did 10 kids in my home before that. Their mothers were school teachers, and so I tended their kids for them. And I also went to work afterwards and up to the school during that time. After I got through tending their kids, then the one school teacher said, would I come and help her? And it was called the IH unit, the Intellectually Handicapped unit. So then I went to work for the Draper Elementary. They had a unit there that I could go and work at. And then the greatest achievement I think we've had was our temple marriage. And there was nothing greater than to be knelt across the altar from Clyde and be sealed to him for time and all eternity, but then to have the 4 children each come up and be sealed to us as an eternal family. That was our greatest achievement, I think, throughout our whole marriage. That was the best. And that was after 35 years of marriage. It took a long time to get Clyde. And I knew not to push him, because the more you pushed him, the further away he got from the church. But I wanted him to stop his drinking and his smoking. And one day, after we'd been to the 4th temple project, he said, I'm ready, I need to change, I want a temple marriage. And I was totally shocked. I wasn't expecting that. because the other three temple projects we had gone to was, he just wasn't ready, he said. And that kind of tore at me a little bit. But when he said he wanted to go through and be sealed to us, that really meant a lot to me, because I thought, he's not being pushed into it. I haven't made him feel guilty about not having a temple marriage. So that really meant a lot to me, that he made that decision on his own. And then it's just been a wonderful, wonderful. We've had our ups and downs. It's not perfect. No marriage is ever perfect. There's always disagreements. But Clyde has a lot more interesting life than I had. When I was little, I used to just have one neighbor friend that was my girlfriend, and we'd walk down, like, it was called the Cooler Freeze. It was just kitty corner from where the Iceberg is. So my mom gave me a nickel to go down and buy a Frosty. And I was probably about seven or eight. We always walked. We didn't have even bicycles. We just walked. And so we went down, and there's a canal that goes past there. Well, we started throwing rocks in the canal, and I threw my nickel in the canal. And I wanted to cry, because that was my only nickel. Now I could get an ice cream cone. But Draper was a good place to be raised. You didn't feel afraid to go walking. You could go walking at nights, walk your girlfriend back home at night. And she just lived next door, though. But things have really changed now. We never locked our doors in Draper, ever. It was not a thing. Yeah, you just didn't do it. So that was hard. After so many years of marriage, you start hearing things getting stolen, and so people started locking their doors. But yeah, I've had a good life, a really good life.
How did you tell your children that Clyde was ready to be sealed in the temple? Did you call them each individually, or have them all come over?
I can't remember how I did it. I was just so excited, and I probably just called them all and told them that your dad wants to be sealed. And I think they knew that he was getting close to that too. So I don't know. I think it was a surprise to them, because it was to me when he said that, because I really didn't think he would. But yeah, it was great.
So how did you meet Clyde?
Oh, yeah, of course we were in the same town. But on my 14th birthday, his sister Ann was my age, and I'd never had a real birthday party or a birthday cake, so her mom baked me a birthday cake, because I used to run around with her a little bit, and so they had a surprise birthday party. So Grace, which is Clyde's mom, asked if Clyde or his brother Leon would go pick me up from home and bring me out there. And so Clyde said, oh, I'll do it. I'll go pick her up. So he come and got me, and I knew I was going out. I didn't know that he had a birthday party surprise. He was taking me out to play with Ann. So on the way out, he drove up this dirt road, which was across from their house, and there was a turkey ranch there. So he just pulled up there and parked, and I got really nervous. I thought, why are we parking? What are we doing here? He was waiting for his mom to flip the light so everything was ready. Then all of a sudden he says, oh, so we just visited for a minute, and then he took me down, and it was a big surprise party. That's how I first met him. So from then on, I was his little girlfriend. So he'd go by in his 58 Impala and honk and wave when we'd be walking. Me and my friend always was walking. And so, but he always had his other girlfriend with him when he'd do that. But that's how I really got to know Clyde. And then all of a sudden he just started asking me out, and then we got married. So yeah, a long time I've known him.
That's incredible.
So yeah.
I guess I was going to ask, what were your parents like growing up?
Oh, my dad would smoke. He smoked cigars. Terrible. My mom and him both would drink once in a while. Matter of fact, over to Aunt May's, who's the one that owned the Iceberg, she had parties all the time over there. And then every birthday party, like if it was my dad's party, then all the aunts and uncles came to our house. So there was a lot of drinking back in those times. And Clyde was also drinking beer. He loved to come to the parties. So, but good parents, even though they weren't. My mom always was a young women's teacher, was Beehives or Laurel's, one of them. Anyway, she was in church that way. She went to church every Sunday, but she'd only go to sacrament, and then she'd go down to the Iceberg afterwards to eat breakfast. But she always took us to church. And so then I got kind of active with our kids, because I wasn't really active before I had the kids either. The only time I'd go to church is during primary, I'd walk down with my friend. We used to walk from Draper school down to our church. And that was fun, because I got to go to primary, walk down there with her. But my dad was totally inactive. He never went to church. But then he got active. I was trying to think how many years they'd been married. 40, I think, years. Anyway, then before he died, they were married and sealed in the temple. So he still wasn't really active because he was so sick. But my mom was a sweetheart. She was always soft-spoken and always wanted the best for her kids. My dad was more stern, and I'm kind of take after my dad's side. Clyde is more easygoing. I want it done right type person. But my dad was good to me. He always he'd take me outside and play ball, because I loved to play baseball and stuff, and he'd teach me different things. My mom was just a sweet lady all the time. I never heard it. Only when she's mad at my dad did I hear her swear. Other than that, she did not. She was always wonderful. Everybody liked my mom. She was a doll. And yeah, they're just really good parents.
Did she cook a lot, your mom?
She did when I was younger. I learned a lot of cooking things, but she never made really bread or anything, not that kind of baking. But there was always a good meal on the table.
Did you have a favorite one?
Probably the fried potatoes and pork chops was my favorite back then. I'm not so much into pork chops anymore, but I still like fried potatoes. And the roast and potatoes and gravy, oh my goodness. She'd make the best gravy. It was delicious. And she always did that every Sunday and had all the family over. And the other good thing was the ham on the Christmas breakfast. She always bought her ham from Frank Smith's store up here in Draper. And he'd order it for her, and it was the best ham. Every year at Christmas. I know she had to pay a lot of money for it, and my dad probably didn't like that. He was more conservative. He didn't. But my mother, she used to call me from her work and tell me to run out and get the mail before your dad gets home and get the ZCMI bill out so he can't see it. So I'd go out and get the mail so that Dad wouldn't see that she had gone and bought all. And what she'd buy was for the kids. It was never for herself. It was always for her kids. So, yep, good parents. They were really good parents.
And what was your relationship like with your siblings growing up?
Yeah, they were. My brother, Kay, great guy. He was 12 years older than me, so I really didn't do anything with him other than after they got married. And after we were married. And Joyce is 9 years older than me, and she was kind of a character. She would get so mad if we walked in the house and didn't take our shoes off, because she just mopped the floor. And so when we come in, she'd make us sit on a chair, my sister. So all I knew her as was like a mean mother. And one time my brother walked in and went like this on her floor and got mud. Well, then she took in after him with a rake. He climbed up a tree and she pulled him out of the tree with the rake. So she was kind of, I love my sister, because after we got married and stuff, things really changed and we became very close, my sister and I did. And with her and her second husband, Floyd, really good people. But and then Paul, My other brother he was closer to me in age. He's like 3 years older than me. But he was kind of to himself. He'd take off and go down the tracks and pick up cigarette butts and come back and smoke them. And he just, I don't know, we was never really close, other than when he first got married. Then when he got married to Kay, they would do vacations and stuff together. So we did become closer after all. But then after they got their divorce, Paul kind of was out of our life. Kay was still in our life. And the children, they always came to every Christmas party and everything. So, yeah. So that's kind of how it was with them.
And you were the youngest?
I was the baby, yeah.
I mean, I'm nowhere near this in my life, but is it strange watching, these siblings, these people you grew up with and grew to love, just kind of pass away? And
It is. It was really hard because we got really close with Kay and Janice too, because they always went to the condo with us. And so it was really hard to have him pass away. He was always a big tease though. He used to make my kids mad. They'd be drinking a drink and he'd stir their drink with his finger and kind of upset them. If he does that again, they would be mad. But he was just a tease. He'd do dumb stuff like that. But he was a great guy. Whenever I needed a blessing, when Clyde wasn't active and my dad wasn't active, he always came and gave me beautiful blessings. And everything he said, after he finished, he said, "It's going to be okay, Connie." He could feel that. And even when Brian got MS, he came down and he didn't do the blessing, Clint did. But Kay stood in the circle and he came over and he says, "Brian is going to be fine." And so whenever he told me it was going to be okay, I knew it was. Because he just had that spirit with him. So, yeah, but it was hard. Paul, we had kind of lost touch. We were there when he passed away, but it wasn't the same feeling as I had for Kay. I thought, well, you've met your maker now. You're going to have to pay for what he had done and stuff. So, but, and my sister, that one was hard too, because we had taken a roast into her for dinner because she wasn't feeling very good. And that night she died when we were there. The ambulance came and took her, and by the time they got her to the hospital, she was gone. So that one was hard too. Yep.
That's young, 20 years ago. I mean.
Yeah, she was actually, was she 70? I think she was 71 or 72 when she passed. So it's probably been longer than 10. It's hard for me to comprehend that time, how long it's been. I only remember my dad's because he died in 79, the same year we built the cabin. And he had been up there one time before he died. And he died in October, his favorite time, deer hunting, because they always went deer hunting every year. So the boys went deer hunting. They said Dad would want us to go deer hunting. But it wasn't the same as because they usually all go together. So, yeah. But, yeah.
Did you guys ever get in any trouble? Or they were a little older than you, but did you ever get into trouble?
No.
In childhood?
Nope.
You probably got into more trouble with Clyde than you had with...
I think so. Yeah, because I really didn't get into a lot of trouble. I don't ever remember my mom or my dad spanking me. I remember one time my mom wouldn't give me a quarter so I could go down to the cooler freeze again because I wanted more than ice cream. And me and my friend were going and she told me she just didn't have it. Oh, I was so mad at her. I feel guilty about it now because I think my mom honestly didn't have it or she'd have gave it to me. But I went in and slammed my bedroom door. I put myself in timeout, I guess. And then I stood in there and stuck my tongue out at her, and I was so mad at her because she wouldn't give it to me. I think, oh, that's so childish, Connie. But, yeah. But she was a doll, my mom was. And we always got along, my mom. And I guess living next door to my mom and dad made us even closer to them. My dad, it was hard on me when my dad passed away, too, because I watched him die of that colon cancer. That was terrible. That was a terrible thing to die of. So, but yep.
Did your kids ever have a really good relationship with their grandparents?
Yes, yeah. Clint did, and Brad especially. He did with my mom. She didn't go anywhere without Brad driving her, grocery shopping, and he'd fill the bag or the basket full of his good stuff that he wanted to eat. And my kids always, and Teresa always, she's more like her dad, very even-tempered, and she just got along with all. Her Grandma Sadler. Not everybody got along with Grandma Sadler, but Teresa always got along with Grandma Sadler. And Brian was the youngest, and my dad died when he was like 5. But I remember that was when I was working as an aide up to the school. And Brian would stay with my dad, and also Cliff Nichols, our other neighbor. And I walked in after school one day, and my dad's asleep in his lounge chair, and Brian's asleep on the couch, but they were still holding hands clear across from each other. And I thought, oh, see, and back then we didn't have cameras to hurry and take a picture, or a phone to take a picture. That always stuck in my mind. So, but all my kids were close to my parents. Yeah, really close. A lot because they were raised right there with them. So, yeah.
And do you feel like being physically close
Yes.
in houses, do you feel like that had a pretty big influence on how you and Clyde raised your family?
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, yep. I think it did. I'm sure it did. Because my mom was such a good example. I was totally opposite of her though. Clyde was more like my mom, where she was more easygoing, and if I ever threatened my kids that I was gonna spank him, or I'm gonna tell your dad, they'd say, oh, good, because Dad doesn't do anything. Mom does, she gives me lickings. But yeah, I think it influenced us a lot.
So your kids really tried to kind of teeter you to threatening them with the dad punishment?
Yeah, go ahead and tell Dad. I prefer Dad punish me than Mom punish him. So, yep. And something else I always did, that when I was younger, not after I was married, but before, we always learned how to ice skate on the pond down below us. That was another thing that we always did, was ice skate. That was the big thing. That's really, we didn't have a lot of other stuff to do than walk to the cooler, freeze, and ice skate. So, but that was another fun thing to do.
Did you ever have any trips or things like that you remember as a kid?
Yeah, going to California a few times with my mom and dad, but we didn't have air conditioner in the car, so they had one little cooler up front that they had to put ice in and then turn our fan on. But they set the cooler in the back seat where we could grab ice cubes, and we'd put them on our head to let it melt, and they'd open the windows while it was hotter with the air coming in, because the desert heat was terrible. But we had some fun trips. With them. So, yeah.
And those were your parents. What were your grandparents like?
Oh, let's see. My Grandma Mitchell, she died way before I was born. But I understand, that's who my sister loved, was Grandma Mitchell. And my Grandpa Mitchell lived to 93. And so he died the year Clyde and I think got married, so in 63. But he was 93 years old, so I knew him pretty well. But the only place I got to see him was in the rest home. He was in a rest home most of his later years that I knew him. But he always played an accordion. So every time we'd go over, he'd sit and play the accordion for us. He was a great guy. And then my Grandma Sadler, my mom's mom and dad, my Grandpa Sadler, he died of cancer, and I didn't get really close with him, but Grandma Sadler I got really close to. She lived in a trailer right next to the Iceberg. So every week I'd go clean her house for her. She'd go up and clean Aunt Mary and Uncle Roy's house. I'd come over and clean her house. Yeah, I was really close with her, and Clyde and I used to bowl on a bowling league with the fire department. And so she'd come over and stay and tend my kids for me when we'd go. Of course, my mom tended him a lot too, but she'd come and I think it was Brad was a baby, and she'd sit and rock him. She wouldn't, I said, Grandma, once he's asleep, go ahead and put him down in his bed. And she wouldn't. We'd get home at midnight and she'd still be rocking him in the rocking chair. So yeah, we were really close with her too. So, and Aunt May, we were very close with her too.
What was kind of your dynamic like with Clyde's parents?
Really good, yeah. His dad, not as much so, but his mom, a sweetheart. She was so good. And his mom and dad they'd cuss each other all the time when we were down there. But I don't know, they just liked to be mad at each other, I think. And yet you could tell they loved each other, but they just would cuss each other. And I told Clyde, that kind of gets to me. But his mother, she did go to church. Clyde said she was inactive, but she actually went to church. She was in the young women's program also, and she'd go to all their camps. They loved her. The young women loved Clyde's mom. And I got along really well with Grace. She's a funny lady. So Grandpa Jensen was more different. I just wasn't close with him. Yeah. And Clyde got along good with him. Especially when they were drinking. They'd go up the cabin. He'd always have his big bottle of booze up there. So, but yeah, they are good people too. It's just that I got along better with Grace than I did with Ken.
I mean, Clyde had mentioned it, but did you see kind of a change in his behaviors after his mom passed?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I hadn't noticed a lot. Clyde mostly changed is when he decided to go to the temple. That's the only big change I really saw in him. Because alcohol is a terrible thing to be into, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it when he drank it, and so I'd be kind of ornery. So that was I told him that's been our biggest fight, is over the drinking. So I told him, I said, I was glad he quit smoking first, and then he quit drinking later. But that was the only issue we really ever had, was his drinking. And that's when we'd have our fights. And I just told him that it's not good for the kids to see that. It isn't good for us. And so all of a sudden when he just decided, I was shocked that he was going to change. And even when he was not active until he had changed. And then I thought, well, his sons, they still learn so much good from Clyde. I mean, they've learned how to take care of their own cars. They know how to change the oil. They know how to fix things. They know how to build things. And I thought he's been a good father in so many ways. And even though I did a lot of the disciplining, he was there when I did need him for that too. But he was a little softer than me, I'm afraid. So, but yeah, he's a good father, even though he wasn't active in the church back then. He showed him a lot. He taught him a lot. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I'm glad to have him because he saved us a lot of money over the years, because he did not like to pay for anything. He always wanted to fix it himself. So, and Brad's a lot like him. He doesn't want to pay for anything. He wants to fix it himself. So, which is good.
It's a great skill to have.
It is. It really is.
And what would you say is one of the most fun experiences, or one of the coolest experiences you've had while being married to Clyde? Other than, I don't want to say other than the temple, but on top of the temple.
On top of the temple. Just all the cruises and things we've done with our kids. To me, when the family goes, I am so happy. When I find all the family's going to go on the cruise, that is when I get excited. I love that. I love the family to be together. And it's hard. We get together still for Christmas, but it's getting so now they have their own families to do their Thanksgiving with, and I still would like to do the Easter one too, because that always kept our family. Those are my fun times, is with the family when they all get together. And to see the difference in them, you know, all of them are different. They all have their little quirks, but they're all wonderful kids. I'm very blessed. Clyde and I have been very blessed with our children and grandchildren. Very happy. Yep, happy with them and the choices they've made too, so.
Well, I mean, for the people listening, my second date with my wife, we came and met up with Connie and Clyde afterwards.
Exactly. And you know, most of them, it's when you say that, I think even Lexi before they ever got married, would bring him over to meet us, you know, and I'm going, oh, that's so nice. And then I try not to get too involved and say, oh, now, are you LDS? Uh-huh. So I try not to get too involved, because I love them no matter if they're LDS or not, if that's their choices. Mm-hmm. So as long as they're good people, that's all that matters. So
I like to think the grandkids bring the significant other to you so you can weed them out if they're bad ones.
I think so. I think that's what it is. Yeah. See, and they've all done good picking, so.
What would you say is one of your big turning points in your life?
Other than the temple, that was a big turning point to me, because I wondered if it would ever happen. Because I thought, oh, Clyde's never going to. There was times I'd get discouraged and think, he's not going to change. Just learn to live with him like he is. He's a good person. He's a good husband. He's a good provider. And so I'd try to pick the good things out, but I still was disappointed that he didn't want to be an eternal family. So when he did make that decision, I'll tell you, I was so shocked. And the bishop was, because the bishop had called us in after the fourth one, temple project, and said, well, how do you feel, Clyde? What did you think about this one? And he says, it all made sense. I looked at him like, that's the first time I've ever heard him say that. And he said, I want to go through the temple. And the bishop looked at me and he goes, did you hear him? And I says, yeah, but I'm not really understanding that that's really what he wanted, because we were both so shocked. And then from that on, he never touched liquor again. Of course, he had been quit smoking a long time before that, but yeah, so that was the big turning point, I think, in our whole marriage. Each child that came, that's a turning point too, because they bring so much into your life. My kids are the best, I'll tell you. I look around at what some parents go through and I think, oh boy, Clyde and I were blessed. I think God sent us four of the best children, because he wanted to get Clyde and I to the temple. So I thought, well, if I send them these good kids, they're going to follow the example of them and they'll make it to the temple. So, and that happened. That was truly what happened. Our kids were the examples, because no matter what, they would go to church. When they got to make their own choices, we never pushed Clinton into a mission. We never pushed any of the boys into going on a mission. That was a choice they made themselves. And because Clyde wasn't active, he says, I'm not pushing my boys to go on a mission if that's not what they want. But they made the right choices. And I knew Clint would, just because he's so stubborn. I knew if he said he's going to go on a mission when he got married, I knew it would happen. So, yeah. Yep.
What lessons, good or bad, have you learned from your parents?
Don't smoke cigars is the bad one from my dad. Because I'd go to school when I got in junior high, and I didn't realize how bad it smelled. Well, I put it in my locker, my coat, and when I come to get my coat at night, or after the school was over, I'd open the locker door and this smell, and everybody's going around, what's that terrible smell? Who's making that? Because it didn't even smell like a cigarette smell. It was a terrible smell. I'm going, oh, that's my coat. But it was so embarrassing for me. So that a bad habit is smoking. But other than that, they were just, my mom was a good example for me. To be a good mom and a good person. She was just a good person all the way around. Loved her dearly. And I loved my dad because he was good to me. Probably because I was the youngest and the spoiled. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of one certain thing. The only bad thing I think is the cigars and the drinking too. That was hard. But they were a lot of fun. My dad was never mean when he been drinking. And that's one thing with Clyde too. He never got mean with me or abusive or anything. So I was grateful for that because I wouldn't have put up with the abuse. So yeah, I can't think of anything else.
So I got two more.
Okay.
One is, what is one of the most innovative pieces of technology that's influenced your life?
Probably the cell phone. Because I've got everything on my cell phone now. I mean, and it makes life easier. It really does. And I can watch all my kids where they are. I think they regretted putting me on 360 because it was like, oh, look, they're on vacation. I could see what they was doing, you know. I just enjoy, it was like watching a TV. But, and the other is the iPad. I love the iPad because I can put my puzzles together on it. I love puzzles, but I hated putting a puzzle together because it took my whole table up. Now I can sit and do 2 or 3 puzzles a day. And you can go away from it and it's not interrupting your dinner or anything because it's not on the table. So, yeah, that's probably been the biggest thing that it's done in my life.
What advice or, tidbits of life would you give to those listening?
Well, I just hope and pray they all stay active in the church because that has been a lifesaver for me many times. Because the church is nothing but good. I makes me feel bad if my kids aren't active or my grandkids go away from the church because there's so much good. I think I found also that I was not as happy when I wasn't active. When I got in the church and got good friends in the church, and the family of my family that was in the church were just so good to be around. It's easier to be around those kind of people. But I just hope and pray they all stay active in the church because I think it's a good place to be. And you're headed to the right direction. Even though we fall off sometimes, we come back and keep going in the right direction, and they'll all be so much happier if they do. So that's the only thing I can think of.
Thanks again, Connie, for being on here.
Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Hope you can understand my voice is starting to go again.
No, we're all good.
Oh.
But with that, I'm Landon, and this is Old Times Talk. Thanks for tuning in to Old Times Talk. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss when wisdom drops. If you or someone you know would like to be interviewed on this podcast, head to oldtimestalk.com and click on the referral tab. And remember, keep the old stories alive. But with that, I'm Landon, and this is Old Times Talk.